Discussing the philosophy of oral sex in the context of the United States requires a nuanced exploration of various perspectives. Cultural attitudes, ethical considerations, and legal frameworks. While oral sex is a private and intimate activity, it is also subject to moral, social, and legal scrutiny. Here we will delve into the philosophical aspects surrounding oral sex in the United States, considering perspectives from ethics, psychology, sociology, and law. Introduction. Oral sex, as a sexual activity, involves the stimulation of a partner's genitals using the mouth, tongue, and lips. It has been a part of human sexual practices for centuries, but its acceptance and perception have evolved over time. In the United States, like many other countries, oral sex carries a complex philosophical landscape that includes discussions on morality, consent, pleasure, and personal freedom. Morality and ethics. The philosophical discussion around oral sex often begins with questions about its morality. Morality is a subjective concept influenced by cultural, religious, and individual beliefs. Different belief systems offer varying perspectives on the morality of oral sex. 1. Religious perspectives. Many religious traditions have specific teachings about sexual practices, including oral sex. For example, some Christian denominations view oral sex within a heterosexual marriage as morally acceptable, while others may consider it sinful. Islamic perspectives on oral sex also vary, with some scholars permitting it between married couples. In contrast, some conservative religious groups view any form of non-procreative sexual activity as immoral. 2. Secular ethics. Secular ethics, which do not rely on religious teachings, often approach the morality of oral sex from a consent-based perspective. Ethical frameworks like utilitarianism may argue that if both partners engage in oral sex consensually and derive pleasure from it without harm to others, it can be considered morally permissible. 3. Personal autonomy. From a philosophical standpoint, some argue that personal autonomy and individual choice should be paramount in determining the morality of sexual activities. As long as the participants are of legal age and provide informed, enthusiastic consent, they should have the freedom to engage in oral sex without moral judgment. Pleasure and intimacy. Philosophically, oral sex can be seen as an expression of human sexuality and a pursuit of pleasure and intimacy. It raises questions about the role of pleasure in human existence and the importance of consensual, mutually satisfying experiences. 1. Hedonism. The hedonistic perspective suggests that oral sex, like other sexual activities, is an avenue for seeking pleasure, and pleasure is an intrinsic good. From this viewpoint, consensual oral sex is not only morally acceptable but also an important part of a fulfilling life. 2. Intimacy and connection. Some philosophers argue that oral sex fosters emotional intimacy and connection between partners. The act can be seen as a way of expressing love and affection, as well as deepening the bond between individuals. Sexual freedom and liberation. In the United States, there has been a broader philosophical discussion surrounding sexual freedom and liberation. The idea that individuals should have the autonomy to make their own choices about their bodies and sexual activities has gained prominence in recent decades. 1. Sexual liberation. The sexual liberation movement of the 1960s and 1970s challenged traditional norms and restrictions on sexual behavior. It emphasized personal freedom, autonomy, and the idea that consenting adults should be able to engage in sexual activities, including oral sex, without societal interference. 2. Sex-positive philosophy. Sex-positive philosophy encourages open and honest discussions about sex, promotes consent, and advocates for the acceptance of diverse sexual practices, including oral sex. This philosophy aims to remove shame and stigma associated with sexual activities. Sociocultural factors. Philosophical discussions about oral sex in the United States cannot be divorced from the sociocultural context in which they occur. Cultural attitudes, gender dynamics, and historical influences play a significant role in shaping these discussions. 1. Gender equality. The perception of oral sex can be influenced by gender dynamics. Some argue that cultural expectations often place the burden of performing oral sex on women, and this can be seen as a form of sexual inequality. Philosophers advocating for gender equality argue that both partners should be equally willing participants. 2. Media and popular culture. Media representations of oral sex can both reflect and shape cultural attitudes. The portrayal of oral sex in movies, TV shows, and pornography can influence public perception and expectations. Legal framework. The legal status of oral sex in the United States varies by jurisdiction and has evolved over time. Legal considerations add another layer to the philosophical discourse surrounding this sexual practice. 1. Age of consent. Laws regarding the age of consent vary by state. In some states, the age of consent for sexual activity, including oral sex, is 16, while in others, it is 18. These laws reflect the societal philosophy that minors cannot provide valid consent. 2. Sodomy laws. Historically, many states had sodomy laws that criminalized certain sexual acts, including oral sex. These laws were often used to target LGBTQ+ individuals. The U.S. Supreme Court's decision in Lawrence v. Texas in 2003 declared such laws unconstitutional, affirming the right to sexual privacy. 3. Consent and assault laws. Consent is a fundamental legal principle. Any sexual activity, including oral sex, without the consent of all parties involved is considered sexual assault, and it is illegal. Conclusion. The philosophy of oral sex in the United States is a multifaceted and evolving discussion that encompasses moral, ethical, cultural, and legal dimensions. While some may view it through the lens of morality and religious teachings, others emphasize personal autonomy and sexual liberation. Sociocultural factors, such